Welcome to the chosen ones. Be careful who you crucify. They may resuscitate with receipts. Have you ever noticed how the loudest voices in a room are seldom the ones speaking the truth? And how the folks who spend the most time talking about you don't seem to be achieving much in their own lives? So buckle up, because what was supposed to destroy you instead became your red carpet. This is a cold, hard reality. According to social psychology study, individuals are more prone to trust rumor about someone they like than about someone they do not know. Translation: the more obsessive they were with dragging your name through the mud, the more it proved how much they wished they were you. They branded you false, theatrical, threatening, and manipulative, all while practicing your every action like understudies for a play they'll never be cast in. The irony is that the rumor they circulated was designed to destroy your influence, but instead it increased it. Now, here's an unexpected story twist. People are waking awake. They're beginning to wonder, if they really despise this individual, why are they so obsessed? And guess what? The crowd is flipping the script. The gossipers are being discarded like outdated tea bags. And you're being honored not just because you survived, but also because you did it without losing your mind, mouth, or magical abilities. Let us chat about it. First and foremost, the rumor served as a disguised spotlight. You received free exposure without having to spend money on marketing. They believed gossip would destroy you. They believed that if they whispered enough trash behind your back, it would spread like wildfire and turn everyone against you. But instead, it did something crazy. It made folks inquisitive about you. Your name began to circulate about in places you had not yet explored. People began questioning, who is this person they can't stop talking about? So they observed silently and surreptitiously. And when they did, they didn't see the monster that the detractors were attempting to depict. They saw someone unconcerned, attentive, elegant, and genuine in a manner. They gave you free advertising. You did not pay for attention. You did not advocate for approval. They gave you both while intending to ruin you. Every insult served as a promo for your grandeur. Every falsehood they uttered opened a portal. People stepped through to discover who you really were. And when they realized the reality, the majority of them remained. When rumor contradicts reality, it breaks the illusion. When people realize they've been duped, they don't simply stop listening to the chatter. They begin doubting everything that person has ever said. The people who attempted to exploit your name for drama did not realize that the truth always comes out. People are increasingly abandoning them because they recognize the trend. They witness the envy, the desperation, and how those individuals want someone to speak to in order to feel important. They're bored of it. Meanwhile, you never had to say anything. Your acts, constancy, and tranquility spoke louder than any argument you could have offered. People recognized you did not have to prove yourself. You let the talk die down while you continued to flourish. You didn't just endure it. You flipped it. Now you're the one being honored. Not because you battled for it, but because you were selected for it. And it is the part they will never grasp. That the more they attempted to bring you down, the higher you rose and the louder the acclaim became. All due to the same rumors they said would ruin you. Number 2, the cosmos. Allow them to communicate so you can determine who was weak enough to believe it. The rumors weren't simply noise. This was a spiritual test. And those who tolerated it believed it, or even remained quiet while it spread. They unwittingly showed their true loyalties. That chatter was never just about your name being dragged. It was about determining who was weak enough to believe it, who was deceptive enough to repeat it, and who was genuine enough to remain by your side. Even while your reputation was being attacked, it distinguished the faithful from the opportunistic. People usually claim they support you until it's uncomfortable or until believing in you costs money. That's when you discover who was with you out of love and who was there because it was convenient. And the rumor storm made the lines apparent. It revealed those who applauded in your face but spoke falsehoods behind your back. It exposed those who claimed to care about you but couldn't wait to spread rumors like hot potatoes. It revealed who wanted your collapse to feel better about their lack of progress. Some folks did not even need proof. They took one distorted version of the tale and ran with it. That was not about you. It was about them. How little it needed for them to flip about how excited they were to see you fall in order to feel taller. That's the gift tucked somewhere amid all that chaos. You did not lose anybody who really cared about you. You lost those who only applauded when it benefited them. That is why the talk was allowed to spread, not to shatter you, but to reveal what was previously concealed in plain sight. The universe wanted to reveal you who couldn't go on with you. Some of those pals were never intended for the version of you that is emerging today. And the reality is, if that chatter had not occurred, you could have continued to trust individuals who were secretly pulling for your downfall. As for the slander campaign, it was a magnificent filter. It stung, but it cleared your circle. And what's left around you is now well tested. That is something no falsehood can ever erase. Number 3, your constancy outlasted their performance. Gossip has a limited shelf life. It burns quickly and intensely before fading away. But constancy is what people remember. The people who sought to harm your reputation were depending on shock value. They hurled all they had at your reputation, hoping that anything would stick. Lies, exaggerations, and distorted tales. It was all for show. But here's the issue about performances. Eventually, the curtains shut. Even after the audience has left, the truth remains. You did not match the craziness. You did not rush to clear your name. You simply continued being yourself. Day after day, minute after moment. And that's how they were exposed. Everyone paid notice. They may not have said out loud, but they were watching. They noticed that you never flinched. How you avoided lowering yourself to their level. How you remained focused as your name was thrown about like cheap gossip at a lunch table. They saw how your vibe did not alter. How your character did not crack. How your past did not bend. Simply because your name was under siege. That's what prompted them to rethink the story. Anyone can put on a simple show, but standing firm when your name is under assault requires strength. That requires alignment. And that is what you showed them. Not in words, but in your walk. While the gossipers were busy switching around, changing tales, and contradicting themselves, you were just doing what you'd always done, living in truth. And the truth outlived the falsehoods. People eventually tire of drama. They start searching for patterns, and your constancy serves as evidence. The detractors failed to see that every time they lied, they offered you another opportunity to succeed. Another opportunity to let your honesty speak for itself. You didn't need a defense. You were the defense. Your character was the proof. The same folks who believe the noise are now coming to their own opinions. They are recognizing that the drama was just fleeting. But your spirit is the true thing, and it is what triumphs in the long run. Not who cries the loudest, but who walks the straightest when everything is attempting to throw them off track. You did not now speak to them. You've outlasted them. The fourth person realized, wait, why are they obsessed with you? They didn't intend to, yet they exposed themselves. Those who were always gossiping about you believed they had control over the story. They believed that if they repeated your name enough times, people would support them. But they didn't anticipate how evident their infatuation would become. After a time, it no longer resembled worry, caution, or opinion. It began to appear like sheer bitter jealousy. People started asking the question that the detractors dreaded the most. Why are they so concerned about this individual? Because when someone can't stop talking about you, even when you're not present, it makes others wonder what the true story is. And that's when the transformation occurred. People began observing you for themselves, silently and intently. And what they discovered did not align with the hate campaign. It was the contrary. They saw someone who wasn't resentful, messy, or even reactive. Simply someone who was developing, beaming, and going about their business. That's when folks understood this wasn't typical. Why did they make you the focus of every conversation? Why did your name elicit such powerful responses? Why were they watching you like a full-time employee when you weren't even looking for them? Suddenly, the chatter stopped making you appear guilty and instead made your detractors look insane. The fact is that obsession exposes what insecurity conceals. They couldn't match your intensity, so they sought to influence how others saw you. Their preoccupation, however, revealed their identity. It began to look like jealousy, as if they want your status, vitality, and calm but didn't know how to get it. So they attempted to wreck it. When individuals saw this, they started to disengage. The rumor has lost its credibility. The audience looked away because talking about someone makes it seem as if you are the issue. And in your instance, they didn't just overdo it. They revealed themselves as fans in disguise. Number 5, you were the mirror that they couldn't break. You were not the villain in their narrative. You were the mirror. That's why they disliked you so much. Your strength, discipline, and tranquility. It reminded them of everything they were trying to avoid in themselves. You didn't need to say anything simply by being yourself. You made them feel vulnerable. You forced them to face the aspects of themselves they were too terrified to change. That's why they needed to attack you. It was not about you at all. It was about how they felt being in your presence. Small, uninspired, false, and unsteady. You were the unavoidable reflection. When individuals are unwilling to progress, they will fight anything that exposes their stagnation. Instead of accepting responsibility, they cast blame on others who shine without permission. They will belittle your work while secretly desiring it. They will refer to your confidence as arrogance, your isolation as strange, and your boundary-setting attitude. But deep inside, they wish they had your self-control. Your light revealed their darkness, and they frightened. That is why the chatter had no basis in fact. It was only a projection. They couldn't help themselves, so they attempted to harm you. They imagined that by tearing you down, they might feel taller. However, breaking down a mirror does not make your reflection vanish. It just leaves broken glass. They ended up bleeding on their own life. What they didn't realize was that truth does not need permission to stand. It does not need defending. Truth just is. You stood in it every day. They lied about your name. You became stronger. Every effort to lower your light made folks glance twice to see what the commotion was about. So what did they find? Someone genuine. Someone faulty but genuine. Someone the falsehoods could not reach. They couldn't break you because you weren't constructed with ego. You were created on purpose. Purpose cannot be eliminated by projection. The truth kept accumulating. People kept waking up. And now, their assaults seemed desperate. While you were still standing. Clear, solid, and unmoving. The mirror did not fracture. It displayed the number 6. Their falsehoods have aged horribly. However, your ethics became a legacy. At first, their falsehoods were loud, piercing, and compelling. People heard the chatter, and some bought into it because drama sells quickly. But time does not merely reveal falsehoods. It erodes them slowly and consistently, just way water wears down stone. And when the clamor around you receded, your reality remained unwavering. You did not hurry to protect yourself. You did not respond with further turmoil. You simply kept turning up regularly, quietly, with your head held high and your hands clean. That is what people remember. The problem with lying. As they age, they begin to fracture beneath the pressure of reality. Details do not match up. Stories change. People forget what they said and who they said it to. In contrast, the truth does not need any changes. It simply lives. And since you kept true to yourself, your character could speak for itself. Your honesty eventually grew louder than their allegations. People began to notice. They recalled what had been stated about you, but then they saw how you moved, and it did not match. There is no secret motive or animosity, just development, serenity, and purpose. That disparity alone caused people to doubt everything, even why the falsehoods were given in the first place. That's when folks began avoiding the gossipers. They recognized the insecurity underlying the tales. They detected jealousy behind the show. What you've developed today is more than simply a reputation. It is a heritage, the sort that cannot be faked or created. You did not just withstand the slander campaign. You surpassed it. You used their allegations as a background, allowing your truth to shine even brighter as their falsehoods faded away. Your honesty is gaining recognition. You were never a villain. You demonstrated that progress, discipline, and sincerity are still achievable, even when others attempt to bury you in uncertainty. And that is why people are selecting you right now. Because, while the enemies were working to damage your reputation, you were quietly becoming remembered. Number 7, the genuine ones, are being probed. They discovered a giant amid the ants. Not everyone fell for the noise. The noisy chatter may have influenced the surface-level thinkers, those who choose drama over facts. But the true ones are the watchers, the profound thinkers who avoid jumping to conclusions. They were not as willing to believe the hoopla. They sat back, watched everything happen, and studied you. They were unmoved by loudness. They were motivated by constancy, and what they discovered didn't match what was being claimed. They anticipated chaos, disorder, and maybe even arrogance, but instead they found calm. While your name was being passed about like a game of telephone, you did not spiral. You did not lash out. You did not even flinch. You kept anchored and moved with purpose. You expressed more with your demeanor than with your words. That's when it finally clicked for them. The rumor didn't represent your shortcomings. It reflected your might. Real ones can tell the difference between attention-seeking chatter and true power. They recognized that those attempting to destroy your reputation were scrambling, insecure, noisy, and out of control. Meanwhile, despite the turmoil, you remained cool, composed, and even elegant. That kind of elegance does not come from concealing anything. It comes from someone who is anchored. They saw through the smear effort because they were not just listening. They were analyzing. And when they put the pieces together, it became evident that you were not a danger. They said you were the reality they could not bear. A giant among ants. A power too large to be contained inside their little, sad tails. And these silent observers did not only disagree with the chatter. They began advocating for you in ways you'll never hear about. Conversations you didn't attend, rooms you've never entered. Your name was being protected not because you asked, but because the facts spoke for themselves. They became your silent witnesses, seeing through the fog to find grandeur behind the cacophony. So, while the gossipers speak in circles, the genuine ones investigated, and what they discovered did not terrify them. It inspired them, because once a person sees a gigantic, they cannot unsee it. Eighth, they weaponized insecurity. You personified grace. They believed they were brilliant, wielding rumor like a blade. Quiet enough to dodge responsibility, sharp enough to do harm. However, gossip is the weapon of the insecure. It only works on delicate targets. When the person being discussed need permission to live. But you've never behaved like that. You did not need applause to be respected. You did not need to fight to establish your point. You let the murmurs fly, the falsehoods pile up, and you didn't even break pace. That is not weakness. That is grace. Grace may be hazardous in the face of trivial assaults. They wanted a response. They needed it. Their whole scheme relied on you. Cracking, losing control, revealing to the world that you were as untidy as the picture they were creating. But you did not give it to them. You remained calm and focused. You did not respond with a viral breakdown or a spectacular clapback. Instead, you maintained silent. They couldn't understand a kind of tranquility that shouted louder than any rumor. That's what terrified them the most. So, when you reply with grace rather than turmoil, the rumor loses its power. The story crumbles because you aren't feeding it. And gradually, people begin to notice. They see someone being lied about and slandered. Yet it continues to rise, build, and shine. And people begin to wonder, wait, who is really the problem here? They used gossip to reduce you, but you used grace to outgrow them. They flung stones at you, expecting you would break. But your soul is not composed of glass. You are made from something holy. That's why their approaches failed. That is why, even when your name was obscured by smoke, your route remained clear. And now the wind that carried their falsehoods has shifted. It's blowing the smoke away. People are beginning to realize that the truth is being revealed without your intervention. The throne they attempted to conceal is becoming evident. And there you are, still standing, ascending, and unconcerned, since you never had to struggle for a crown. You were born to wear the number 9. You're being hailed today because you passed through fire without turning to ash. You did not ask for compassion. You did not send cryptic messages or try to defend yourself every time someone dragged your name through the dirt. You kept it moving, calm, and respectable. That stillness was not weakness. It was strength under pressure. The individuals that were watching witnessed it. Perhaps not all at once. Perhaps not loudly. They eventually noticed, however. They watched you go through the flames. And they realized something unusual. You did not burn. You refined. That is why you are now being praised. Not because life was simple or because you had an instant return complete with bright lights and applause. It's because you went through something that most people would have collapsed under. And you did it without becoming bitter, spiteful, or compromising your sincerity. That is not only survival. That is transformation. That's why people are attracted to you right now. They can sense it. Your presence exudes weight, serenity, and unmistakable strength. You earned it all in quiet. You did not wait for public approval. You didn't need others to rally around you in the midst of the chaos. You simply continued expanding in the dark while your name was dragged into places you'd never been to. And now the individuals who formerly questioned you, disregarded you, or condemned you based on gossip, they're recognizing they're mistaken, not because you modified your tale to appease them, but because your life exposed the reality. People like redemption storylines, but they are more interested in resilience, particularly when it does not demand attention. You did not request to be celebrated. Your constancy required it. You demonstrated what it's like to go through hell and emerge unscathed. No drama, no victim mentality, simply quiet struggles and loud outcomes. That is why you are memorable, because you demonstrated that you do not need to explain yourself to succeed. You only need to tolerate the fire without allowing it to alter your nature. And now you're not just being recognized, you are being recognized. Because genuine ones understand true resilience and know it when they see it. Number 10, they attempted to socially banish you, but instead given you heavenly seclusion. They believed that forcing you out would break you, that if they separated you, cut you off from support, and poisoned people against you, you'd shatter in return for acceptance or validation. However, they failed to see that isolation does not kill the chosen. It refines them. The so-called exile they created wasn't your undoing. It marked the beginning of your holy seclusion, and it was their worst mistake. When the commotion subsided and the bogus connections vanished, you were left in stillness. Most individuals find quiet frightening, but for you, it became sacrosanct. You finally have room to hear yourself clearly, free from manipulation and distractions. You were no longer performing. You were no longer shrinking. You were no longer feeding on energy that did not replenish you. And in that nothingness, you discovered your completeness. You didn't just endure being locked out. You developed. The version of you that existed before to the exile could not have dealt with the level you are presently at. That previous version was still focused on pleasing others, hoping they'd see the true you. But solitude healed it. It made you see yourself. And in doing so, you discovered clarity, discipline, and power. They had not anticipated what you would discover. They did not banish you. They released you. They silenced the hubbub so that your goal could be heard. They attempted to isolate you socially, but inadvertently offered you the keys to spiritual advancement. And you've outgrown all narratives. They attempted to link you to your now unrecognizable self, not because you changed to prove them incorrect, but because you finally had the freedom to become who you were always intended to be. They tried to cancel you, but God had called you. That solitude was not punishment. It was for protection. You were never supposed to be a part of their gossip and circles. You were progressing in quiet by creating, mending, and becoming. And now they don't recognize you. Not because you are concealing, but because your progress has surpassed their view. They arranged heavenly solitude to shame. You became your own shelter. And now you walk as if you've been alone with destiny because you have a number. Your quiet was louder than their circus. They expected you to snap, scream, and spiral. They preferred turmoil because that is how they work. They create drama, cause uncertainty, and wait for a response. They are capable of twisting into evidence. But you didn't give them anything. Only quietness, non-passive stillness. It's deliberate, the sort that declares, I know who I am. I don't need to prove anything to anybody by playing games that I've outgrown. Your serenity did not stem from weakness. It came from the depths. That's what rocked them when they were putting on a show, faking anger, creating drama, and collecting crowds to feed their egos. You did not even blink. You were not concealing. You were anchored. And they were afraid more than if you had yelled back because they could sense it. Your quiet was not empty. It was power under control. That level of quietness is not typical. It comes from weathering actual storms rather than trivial chatter, from going through fire and coming out clean. So, as they danced about, attempting to damage your image, your energy spoke volumes. You did not have to defend your name in every room. It was dragged through. You allow truth to do what it always does, rise. They didn't comprehend how you could be so calm. But that's because they've never experienced the serenity that comes from God, from alignment, or from understanding that no weapon manufactured can flourish. Not even a weapon composed of words. They underestimated the weight of your immobility. However, it was an empty space. It was a shield. That was a statement. Deep down, it bothered them because their circus required care, and you deprived them of it. You did not attend the performance. You didn't play the role, and you didn't fan the fires. And when you didn't respond, the spotlight refocused on them, revealing how desperate, loud, and lost they really were. Your quiet was not silent. It was a strategy. It was sacrosanct. In the end, it rang louder than all the commotion. Because power that does not need to perform, that is the kind of power that cannot be touched. A number. They didn't realize you have spiritual protection. Their words reverberated. They assumed their statements were just murmurs in private rooms, jokes shared about in messages, or tiny jabs disguised as care. They didn't comprehend that speaking bad against someone who is spiritually protected is like spitting in the wind. It always comes back stronger. They believed they were spreading seeds of ruin, but they were instead excavating their own graves because gossip does not fall flat when someone is covered, selected, and divinely linked. It backfires. You weren't wandering around cursing. You did not have to. You were merely linked with a greater order that is based on fairness, not noise. Every insult they hurled, every false narrative they created, and every stain they attempted to cast on you, it did not vanish. It went completely wrong, and it affected them harder than they could have expected. Because spiritual law never forgets. It may wait silently, but when it moves, it does so openly. You didn't move a finger. And yet, the individuals who attempted to destroy you are now seeing their own circles implode, their reputation erode, and their energy depleted. That's not a coincidence. That is a consequence. They had no idea your name was covered in supernatural protection. They were not aware that you had been allocated, not simply surviving. They believed they were assaulting someone, but they were really provoking them on purpose. And the consequences is no longer veiled. People are beginning to notice it. It is not only karma. It is spiritual law settling accounts. The hilarious part is that they were loud while they were ripping you down, but they're silent now that the situation has caught up with them. They believed they were throwing shadows on you, but they ended up standing in the dock themselves. Meanwhile, you're strolling through more light than ever, not because you battled them, but because you refused to belittle yourself. You didn't need vengeance. You had regard, and the force that surrounds you saw everything. Ridicule, deceit, and treachery. Everything was logged, and now the bill is due. They had no idea who they were dealing with, but they now know their number. Your reputation was not protected. It was discovered that you had never asked anybody to see you accurately. You never disputed your point or attempted to change the rumors when they were assassinating your character behind your back. You were intent on living right in front of their faces. You did not pursue your reputation. You have lived your truth. And it's no longer defense that is clearing your reputation. It is evidence. A person who consistently demonstrates honesty has an undeniable quality. You didn't have to persuade anybody about your merits. You simply continued strolling through it. The folks who were intended to believe the falsehoods gradually became confused. The picture they created of you did not reflect the enthusiasm you had. The tales didn't match your conduct. You did not clap back, spiral, or act out. You remained consistent. That's what destroyed the illusion. Fruit, on the other hand, is not easily imitated. People saw you walk and noted that your life was not hectic. Your spirit was not poisonous. Your energy was not manipulative. You were developing, building, and mending while your opponents were busy sowing weeds. And now that harvest season has here, the difference is evident. Your outcomes speak louder than their allegations. What? You didn't say what? Live verified the facts, had time on its side, and, while they hurried to pollute your name, the clock silently revealed them. People who formerly believed the rumor are now asking themselves, why does this person they despised walk with such peace? grace, and favor. Because falsehoods may generate noise but cannot bear fruit. Your reputation was never yours to defend. Your stroll served as proof. And you walked even though it hurt. Even when you were misunderstood. Even if it was lonely. That is why you are now being praised. Not because you battled for others' ideas, but because you remained faithful to your own. And this is what the intelligent ones observed. Not just what was said about you, but what grew from you. They see the difference today because the chatter has gone, but your progress has not. A number. The gossip provided you something invaluable. A platform based on evidence. The talk was supposed to kill you, yet all it did was highlight you. What they didn't realize was that while they were talking, you were busy becoming. They assumed that dragging your name through the dirt would turn people against you. But the mud didn't stay because you had something others lacked. And now everybody can see it. You did not argue back. You did not rush about attempting to dominate the story. Your actions, consistency, and improvement speak louder than any defense. Over time, the dust cleared and the falsehoods crumbled. What was left standing was you, unshakable, exalted, and gleaming from inside. Not because you were permitted, but because you were established. And that radiance, it's what causes people to pause, reflect, and wonder, how did they survive all of that and still have power in their eyes? You now have something they can't buy, reputation earned through suffering. When you talk, people pay attention because your words are not theoretical. They've lived. Every statement is meaningful because they saw you travel through betrayal, rejection, and slander without losing your soul. That kind of authority, it cannot be made. It is earned. The irony is both cruel and poetic. The same individuals who attempted to bring you down gave you the greatest gift. A platform based on evidence that rumor brought attention to your article, and your tale outshone the slander. They attempted to cancel you, but all they accomplished was to spread your grace to a larger audience. They attempted to bury a prophet, not aware that the seed usually bursts open underground. Their lips are now silent, not because they have changed, but because they have been outperformed. And those who were previously hesitant to support you are now cheering from the sidelines because your resilience woke them up. You did not merely ascend. You ascended directly in front of them. And the evidence is irrefutable. They gave you dirt, and you made a kingdom out of it. And today, when you speak, even your previous detractors lean in because genuine recognizes real. In the end, every lie, whisper, every effort at shame. You just functioned as a stepping stone to your public confirmation. What they intended as sabotage became a heavenly setup. Their gossip was never as powerful as your elegance. And now, the same force that mocked you has returned in the form of quiet, sorrow, and disclosure. The fact is, I've always had your back. It just needed time to grow. They were shouting, but you were developing in solitude. While they were plotting, you were coordinating. And as they were hurling dirt, you were evolving into a form of yourself that could no longer be ignored. You did not retaliate, you evolved. And that metamorphosis is why your name is being redeemed without you ever having to touch the battlefield. What makes your win so powerful isn't just you rose. You ascended without resentment. You didn't just prove them incorrect. You showed yourself correct. You did not beg for a place at their table. You constructed your own. And now people are watching you feast where they said you would fail. The whispers are gone. The show has concluded. The masks have slipped. So what's left? A narrative that outlasted the rumors. Yours. A legacy woven with grit, elegance, and honesty. The stage where they sought to shame you has now become your platform. And the spotlight. It's finally where it should be. You weren't just vindicated. You were exposed. Let them speak if they dare. Everyone can see plainly now. You were never an issue. You were the prophesy. If this message resonated to your spirit and made you feel seen, heard, and understood, then this area was created for you. Don't just watch and browse. Connect. Hit the subscribe button to join a community that gets it. Tap. Like if you've ever gone through anything similar and come out stronger. Leave a comment below and tell us your tale. Your opinion matters here. And do not keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone who has been dealing with rumor, misinformation, or quiet warfare. Someone who needs to know that their name will be redeemed without the need for them to do anything. You are not alone. You are not insane. and you are certainly not vanquished. Welcome home. God bless you.